Thank you, Fred, and my thanks to the Atlantic Council for the opportunity to be here tonight, and for your leadership and engagement on global issues that are shaping this complex new century. Now, some people might consider it peculiar for the chairman of one big old aerospace defense company to travel halfway across the country to say nice things about the leader of one of its toughest competitors. The psychiatrists here, and there must be at least a couple out there, might even call it cognitive dissonance, but not really, not really. We have much in common. Our two companies trace their humble roots back for about a century, with the first airplanes built in a rented church and garage almost 103 years ago in Lockheed Martin's case, and in a boathouse about 99 years ago in the case of Boeing. Our traditions spring from a handful of pioneers who risked their fortunes, reputations, and even their lives. They did so to build the industry that won a world war and then a Cold War and turned the airplane into an instrument of global travel and commerce. Today, we are both fortunate to be pillars of a U.S. aerospace and defense sector that continues to be a national strategic asset for our country to this very day. Which brings me to one of our industry's most admired leaders, tonight's honoree, Marillyn Hewson. Since taking the helm at Lockheed roughly 2.5 years ago, Marillyn has provided a guiding light and firm hand to the world's largest defense company. The story goes that when Marillyn was a young girl, her mom would send her to the grocery store with instructions to buy, about $7 worth of items. The catch was she only gave Marillyn $5 to spend. Pretty good early training for dealing with sequestration, I would think. From Boeing's perspective, Marillyn has turned an always worthy business adversary in Lockheed Martin into an even more formidable competitor, in many cases, though, a valued partner as well. In fact, Boeing and Lockheed are taking this compete and collaborate approach to a whole new level with our joint proposal to build the next long-range strike bomber for the U.S. Air Force. Marillyn has been an articulate and dogged advocate for public policies and levels of funding that will keep the United States second to none in the stars, in the skies, and on the battlefield, even during an era of gridlock and budget uncertainty here in D.C. In all, it would be very difficult to imagine a more fitting recipient of this year's Distinguished Business Leadership Award than Marillyn Hewson. And now I am deeply honored to present Marillyn with the 2015 Distinguished Business Leadership Award.
Well, thank you, Jim, for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. You know, over the years, our companies have shown that we share many of the same values, and it's truly an honor for me tonight to be introduced by a respected competitor, a strong partner, and a good friend. So thank you again, Jim. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and members of the Atlantic Council. I'd like to begin first by thanking Governor Huntsman and the Atlantic Council for this prestigious award. I also want to congratulate my fellow honorees. It's truly a privilege to share this stage with such impressive leaders. Clearly, this prestigious award is a tribute to the accomplishments of the 112,000 men and women of Lockheed Martin and their commitment to our over 100-year legacy of innovation and exceptional service to our customers. So I humbly accept this award on their behalf. It's especially rewarding for us to see this recognition from the Atlantic Council. There are few organizations that have done more to meet the global challenges of our time. The Atlantic Council has become an essential forum for the 21st century issues, such as cyber statecraft or Middle East peace, to the future of energy markets, and to transatlantic trade and security. For decades, the Council has held fast to its founding mission to bring people together to act in common purposes in order to shape a better future. You are the champions of collaboration and partnership beyond geopolitical boundaries. This spirit of working together across borders is one that resonates with Lockheed Martin. It's a key part of our history, and it's the foundation of our success. In the 1950s, for example, the head of our Skunk Works Advanced Research Center, Kelly Johnson, wanted to know what pilots needed and how we could serve them better. The pilots he talked to said they wanted more speed and they wanted more altitude. This led to the F-104 Starfighter, the most advanced warplane of its age. In fact, it was sometimes called the missile with a man in it. West Germany, as a new NATO member, was anxious to have this elite aircraft. However, as Kelly later relayed, 10 years after World War II, German pilots had no modern jet experience, especially supersonic. So Lockheed launched specialized training programs and sent experts to teach West German engineers how to translate Lockheed Martin plans, technical orders, and unfamiliar parts into true working fighters. The collaboration between the German government and Lockheed was so successful that other nations quickly followed suit, purchasing licensing rights for the aircraft over the ensuing decades. And by 1980, when the last Starfighter was manufactured, some 14 countries, including Canada, Japan, Italy, Turkey, and Taiwan, had operated F-104s, using them in a multitude of roles, from interceptors and ground attack aircraft to reconnaissance jets. This is just one story in our long history that demonstrates the common good that comes from working together. And it's a model of the collaboration that has made us successful over the years. The fact is that it's the innovation that comes from collaboration that is so critical to addressing the dynamic challenges that we collectively face today. To ensure that we maintain our competitive advantage on the global stage, together, we must nurture and advance our spirit of innovation and collaboration. That requires two things: investment in our resources and development of our future innovators. Let me talk to you first about the resources we need to secure the future. As you all know, the transatlantic alliance faces unprecedented threats on multiple borders, from violent extremism to violations of national sovereignty. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Marty Dempsey, summarized the current situation well in his recent testimony to the Senate Armed Services Committee. He said that the global security environment is as uncertain as he's ever seen it in his 40 years of service. I couldn't agree more. To address these unprecedented challenges, it requires that our governments invest in a strong national defense. So I was encouraged that the NATO leaders once again reaffirmed their commitment to spending 2% of GDP on defense at their last year's Wales summit. Here in the U.S., budget uncertainty, driven by sequestration, continues to put America's leadership at risk. As long as sequestration is on the table, we are undermining our ability to protect America's sovereignty and defend our interests around the world, not just for today, but for tomorrow as well. To be clear, since 2011, when the Budget Control Act was enacted, the threats to our nation and to the transatlantic alliance have grown while we continue to debate fiscal priorities. However, while we debate, current and potential adversaries are investing in asymmetric and fifth-generation technologies that will enable them to challenge our values and our interests. As a nation, we must work together to put sequestration behind us. We must find a better solution that addresses our fiscal challenges and that aligns our defense spending with our national security strategy. And as an industry, we must do our part in preparing our nation for the future threats that we will face. Although research and development spending as a percentage of U.S. defense budget has declined since 2012, Lockheed Martin has increased our R&D investment for 3 consecutive years to more than $750 million. And industry-wide, major U.S. defense firms spent more than $4.3 billion on R&D in 2014 alone. However, maintaining our competitive advantage requires more than the investment of resources. It demands that we invest in our future innovators. People like Kelly Johnson, who have the right expertise to solve the increasingly difficult technological problems of the modern world. And this, too, is a challenge for each of us in this room, because there simply aren't enough students graduating in science, technology, engineering, and math, or the STEM fields, to meet the increasing demand. We need to break down barriers to get the best talent from around the world working on the toughest challenges. Working together, we can inspire the next generation to pursue STEM by showing them how exciting and rewarding these jobs can be. That's one of the reasons I'm so proud that Lockheed Martin invests about half of our annual philanthropy budget into STEM programs here in the U.S. and around the world. And while financial support is invaluable, the STEM need is much greater than just making donations. We know that students respond better to role models who can inspire and mentor them in STEM fields. That's why we create opportunities for our engineers to work with students, to tell them their stories and life experiences, and inspire them to become STEM innovators. These investments can make a huge difference. For example, years ago, a Lockheed Martin employee brought her daughter to a Young Minds at Work Day. The little girl had the chance to hear NASA astronaut Bruce McCandless speak, and as a result, she decided she wanted to work in the aerospace industry when she grew up. Well, a few years later, that same young woman went off to college. And while there, she heard a Lockheed Martin engineer talk about the Orion space program and the NASA's mission to Mars. She quickly decided that Lockheed Martin was the right company for her. Today, Heather McKay is a Lockheed Martin Orion propulsion engineer and a STEM ambassador, committed to inspiring the next generation of young people to pursue STEM careers. Heather is just one example of how each of us in this room can influence and inspire the next generation of future innovators. The challenges I've discussed tonight will only grow in the years ahead. More threats to global security, more need for international collaboration and innovation, and more demand for technical expertise. As we navigate these challenges and seize the opportunities they present, together we will shape a shared future, a better future. Our collective prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic has been and continues to be propelled by sharing ideas and technology. Together, we can leverage the spirit of partnership to foster security, innovation, and prosperity here and abroad. Thank you again to the Atlantic Council for this prestigious honor.